Greetings, everybody. Out to sea. Let's continue with some cold stories out here in the snow. So, my 21st birthday, that was a memorable one. And, you know, we want to take it back. I got popped by the DEA when I was 17. FroJ gave me a federal informant. By 19, we're kicking it again, full-blown homies, and he's given me a half a gram of super pure Piperonal MDA, white crystals. It smelled like a combination of Band-Aids, the dentist office, and pepper. Oh my God. 2 to 3 points of that, you're dancing alone in the corner, boy. This stuff was beautiful. So, by the time my 21st birthday comes around, I've been going to raves for a couple years, up in the party scene, having a good time. You know, trying to forget some of this trauma and just have fun. And, you know, there were times where it was fun. It's not just all hell. You know, when I was younger, it was fun. 19 to 21 in particular. We weren't strung out on dope. We were having a good time. I mean, in retrospect, I sure wish would have done something else with my time, you know, in the prime of my life. But 21, I have a girlfriend, and I've been dating this girl for a year. I met her, she was working the lotion stand in Northgate Mall. You know, I got up the balls to go spit some game at her. I had bought some new clothes. You know, I had some money. I was doing well at the time, you know, as far as well goes, you know, a few $100 to buy some clothes. I got up the balls to ask if she wants to go to a hip-hop show, and she did. So I end up dating this girl for about a year. As far as I was concerned, you know, we were a couple. But I knew on the other end, she was out doing all kinds of things. So, 21, I'm living in Lake City in a 1-bedroom apartment with my best friend, Benny. And I think I'm working at the Hop-In Grocery off of Montlake by the 520 overpass by, you know, the Husky Stadium outside of the U District. So I've got a job, we're working. We got this bare bones 1-bedroom apartment off of 120th and Lake City Way. We got a perfect bird's eye view from a balcony on the 2nd floor of the liquor store in the parking lot right off of 120th and Lake City Way. So we got to see all kinds of madness going on out there. You know, me and my buddy, we're tight. You know, we're sharing the bedroom. There's an air mattress on the floor. There's a bed. You know, in the living room, all it is a TV, DVD player, futon, coffee table. So when the landlord rented us this place, he said, "Hey, got a secret for you." We're like, "What's up?" "Burt Reynolds leased this place for 3 years prior to you guys." We're like, "No shit." "Yeah, man." It was like kind of his escape. He was rarely here. He'd come here like a month out of the year. I'm like, huh, that's cool, right? Within a month of staying in this place, you know, we're cooking in the kitchen. Somehow end up under the stove. We drop something, you know, most likely. There's like 3 dozen used rigs under the stove and all kinds of dope paraphernalia. So it's like, wow, if the landlord is telling the truth, good old Burt Reynolds had a nice little heroin habit where he'd sneak off to Seattle a month out of the year to shoot a bunch of dope. So that was something else. So, my 21st birthday. Wake up, I'm sleeping with my girlfriend, right? And my roommate and homie Benny, he's in the house, you know. My parents come to pick me up at like 11 a.m. to go out for my 21st birthday, you know, Mexican lunch and margarita. So, you know, we go and do that. And while we're out for lunch on my 21st birthday, you know, my girlfriend decides to my best friend and roommate, Bo, on my 21st birthday while we're out for lunch. So, it is what it is. This is just a picture of kind of the debauchery that was going on. So, you know, I was pretty sore about that, you could say. You know, I didn't lose my virginity until I was 18. You know, a lot of my peers in junior high were having sex at like 13 years old, and that was just beyond me. You know, I was kind of small and didn't develop quite as quickly as some other people. So this shattered me. I mean, this was catastrophic. I could not believe it. It felt like a Jerry Springer Show episode. My girlfriend sleeps with my roommate and best friend on my birthday? when my parents have just picked me up to take me out for lunch? Are you kidding me? So it's a couple weeks go by. You know, if it was up to her, she wasn't going to ever say anything. But my homie Benny, he had a heart. And so he finally had to tell me, bro, your girl, man, I'm real sorry, but you got to know this. It's like, wow. Horrific, man. So after I find this out, I don't say anything right off the bat, right? And we go out to the Blue Moon, the old shitty bar in the U District off of I-5 and 45th, and managed to sneak her in. She wasn't 21 yet. And so I'm bitter and mad, right? And I intend on confronting her later in the night. But before that, I'm going to get her good and fucked up. So we go to the bar, and I start ordering Long Island iced teas, which if you're trying to get good and thrashed, that's the way to go. I don't even know if they serve those anymore. They're horrific. So she gets super drunk, and I'm like, so, you think it's cool to fuck my best friend and roommate on my birthday, huh? She's shocked. You know, my buddies, hey man, oh, fuck you, I'm toning it down. She slept with you on my birthday. And she wasn't going to say anything about it ever, except you have a heart and had to tell me. So that event right there really, really drove home the fact that people are untrustworthy. You know, I'd been set up by my best homie, my family, when I was 17, handed down a federal informant, knowingly given a customer that's going to give me 10 years to life to look at. And I continued to hang out with this guy because this is just part of the game, right? We're all corrupt. You know, my girlfriend, who I love, sleeps with my best friend and roommate, and this just drives home. People are not to be trusted, man. People are slimy. What is this world here? So, the MDMA had led into cocaine. You know, we came up on a substantial cocaine connection over in Magnolia. Had this Greek cat, and it was Fishscale sheen, baby. I mean, $700 a zip. It was the rainbow Fishscale Superfly sheen. Teeny bump gets you there. And you know, again, I was always the psychedelic cat that was trying to stay with the softer PG-13 drugs. But I'm surrounded by drug dealers in the drug world. Everyone else is starting to deal with the real drugs. You know, this isn't to take responsibility off of me and my drug use, but I'm just saying, you know, I was more into the softer stuff, but I'm inevitably around people that are dealing with the harder stuff. And so coke comes into the picture. And it's a pretty damn addictive drug, you know. You start doing a little bit, and before you know it, I'm getting 8 balls, quarter ounces, I'm selling grams, half grams. Really just to keep myself high. And also because being a drug dealer is cool, right? You know, it was just unfortunately, you know, that's why young kids get into it. It's a way to make money. It's an identity, da-da-da-da-da. So it was after that 21st birthday that things really started going downhill. You know, day after my birthday, my roommate Benny, he's been smoking crack. He learned how to make crack. You know, he's getting this Fishscale rainbow sheen coke from the Greeks, cooking it up into ammonia stones, smoking until he's busting out with sores, having to retreat to his mom's house to heal up. Hey bro, here's this half ounce of Fishscale sheen. So we go wild for my 21st birthday. I got a half ounce of Fishscale. We do it all. A bunch of Klonopin comes into the scene. You know, I'm pretty bitter at my homie Benny for sleeping with my girlfriend on my birthday, right? He's got a sister. So I got my revenge. I start sleeping with his sister. And, you know, this guy was a real dick. You know, so his sister wanted to get back at him. I wanted to get back at him. Even his mom thought it was funny. You know, when he brought it up to her, he tried to be all Scarface. She not for you, man. He literally said that. His mom's response, I'm surprised it didn't happen sooner. So we got, you know, it was toe-to-toe there. I at least got my revenge there. But that's when things started to get really debaucherous. You know, I'm trying to work a job I'm trying to live a normal life, but we're partying and it seems relatively normal what we're doing. You know, like, oh, we're just young kids partying. You know, we could be getting internships at Microsoft, but instead we're getting zips of blow from the Greeks in Magnolia and zips of SAS and MDA from Froje, and more the opiates are coming into the picture. We got this retired disabled longshoreman in Lake City. We're trading him bags of herb for his prescription 30 milligram little purple M30 time release morphine sulfates. You know, we're getting 30, 40 of those at a time, enough to get strung out, you know what I mean? This guy also had a benzodiazepine called Transine. It's the one and only time I've ever seen this benzo. I believe it was spelled Tranxene, Transine. They were 15 milligram pills, and they were little three-dimensional pink T's. T for Transine, we call them Mr. T's. They were 15 milligrams, very comparable to a 10 milligram Valium. So we're trading weed to this dude for 30 milligram morphines, and we're getting 100 count bottles of these Transines, which are totally comparable to 10 milligram Valium. So I'm working at the hop-in grocery. We're doing more and more hard drugs. We're partying, we're getting more and more to dealing. You know, things are going downhill for us. But we've been in this for so long. It's normal, right? It's normal at this point. What else do we do? So we get involved with some cats that are slinging weed. You know, pounds of weed. They got this nice house up on Queen Anne. And this girl's trying to say that she's smoking opium. And, you know, as her roommate said, I never heard of any opium that smells like vinegar. So this girl is just doing knife hits of heroin, calling it opium, right? Now, this is also when OxyContin is decimating the country. You know, I first started seeing the 40 milligram OCs coming through in the late 90s, but we're in the early 2000s and it's on, right? 80 milligram OCs, 40s. It's just a pill. No big deal, right? More and more the black tar heroin's coming in the scene, but it's opium. More and more there's crack coming into the scene. Things are going downhill. And I'm working dead-end jobs. My buddy's working dead-end jobs. We're just lost, right? And so we decide, time to bail. Time to change it up. Time to change our lives. Screw everybody. And so, you know, we'd gotten to be a little bit resentful of this woman and her crew. She was clearly robbing from her people, saying she'd been robbed. She's strung out, just trying to rationalize it's only opium. Like, yeah, whatever, you know. So we come up with a master plan to have these people front me about $5,000 worth of weed and bail down south, never to return. That was literally our plan. You know, so stupid now looking back at it. We were retarded. I'm just over 21, working in the deli at the hop-in grocery. Initially, have these people front me a quarter pound. And this was back when, you know, weed was expensive. You know, getting a quap for $1,000 was good, you know. I never made money selling weed. It was just a smoke, you know. It was never a profitable thing unless you're really growing it or really hustling. But I was always a drug user, you know, so I'm using too much to really make profit. It was really always about staying high and feeling as though I had some type of purpose and identity. That's what it was, you know. It was never really about money, ever. It was just gravy if a little money came in, but mostly I was losing money. So me and my homie Benny, we formulate a heist. You know, I pay back this guy for the quap, make it trustworthy, have him front me another quap. And I came up with a super ballsy plan. You know, we had this dude that lived next to Nathan Hill High School, and we knew his house, we knew the property. You know, you go in through the front side of his house and you go through the back and there's woods and it goes into some other people's backyard and then bam, you're on the next street, right? We planned it all out. And I came up with enough balls to walk into this guy's truck with a duffel bag full of dirty clothing, claiming that I had a half bird, or it wasn't that much, but I said I had 2 zips of Fishscale sheen and a bunch of transines. And I gave him a little baggie with a half gram of Fishscale and some of these Peak Mr. T's and said, here, sample it out while I'm in there. This is my homies from high school. His folks are in there. They've been burned before. They only trust me. Stay out here. Hold on to this for collateral. I'll be back in like 30. And this is all in the hopes that he's not going to propose, let me open the bag and look inside. It was all hinging on that, right? My heart was pounding. I gave him the bag of Fishscale in the Mr. T's, left the duffel bag and said, I'm going to be back. And he gave me a pound for $4,000. So I already had the quap for a G and the pound for 4 G's. I put that bag over my back. My heart is beating. I go up, and we parked in such a way that he couldn't see me at the front door. I had him park in such a way that I go around the house and he couldn't see me knocking at the door. So as soon as I got around the house, bam, I fucking bail. I go down through the woods. My buddy said I hit that fence like a G. Hit it on one leg, bam, bounce over the top, ran up. We had this like little Toyota Tercel hatchback, right? It was a red Toyota Tercel hatchback. My girlfriend said she hated that car, but screw her. She slept with my best friend on my birthday. So there we are, skirting out in the red Toyota Tercel hatchback with a pound and a quarter of super bomb cannabis, easily sold at $300 a zip at that point in time. Before we bailed, we went and saw the Longshoreman and got a nice bundle of 30 milligram oxys, or morphine I mean, the transines like Valium, and then we went and saw the Greeks and got like a nice quarter zip of that Fishscale, and we bailed down to Port Angeles. We go out to the peninsula where my homie Benny was from, and he had people out there. That was our first destination. We're out there for a while, and you know, we're just trying to make ends meet, move what we can, because our whole intention is to sell this herb, start a new life south of Seattle. We wanted to leave the city. We were sick of it. We were already sick of it. This is before we were even strung out. You know what I mean? We wanted out. We were trying to do something new. But in the process, we created some immensely bad karma that pretty much led to us getting strung out. So we spend about a week out in PA. We do up that quarter zip of Fishscale. We do all the morphine and transine, move some of the herb. We end up going further south to Eugene in Oregon, where we got some heads down there. They were more friendly with Benny than with me for some reason. They just weren't super into me. So we end up moving most of the stolen cannabis, and I got a couple grand in my pocket, and I head back to Seattle. We split ways. I remember I get back to my buddy Daryl and Mac's house in Ballard, the kids that came out from Wisconsin. What's going on down there, eh, bud? You got any of that shiny gack? You know, that 2 grand cash I had did not last very long at all. And then I'm back in the city where I just did these people dirty, watching my back. So from my 21st birthday on, that's when things got really debaucherous and when I just kind of gave up, you know, like there wasn't any hopes of college or, you know, anything tangible, and things just went downhill rapidly. It was when I hit 21 that the debauchery really kicked in, and we started doing some dirty stuff, you know, things that are shocking to me now, but I ended up paying dearly for those dirty things we did. You know, I feel like that heist we pulled off with all that herb, it was that dirty karma that got us strung out. All right, I'll come back. Peace.